Hello, my dear viewers. I'm Olga Demchuk, a researcher of the inner world of personality. Today, I would like to talk with you about combativeness. In my work with clients, I realize how much this aspect of personality often remains behind the scenes. Let's reflect on what combativeness actually is. Combativeness is directly connected to conflict. That is, when something is not the way I would like it to be, not identical to me. And we, as individual human beings, evolving from our primal animalistic state to a more developed human form, are inherently supposed to become significantly less aggressive as we continue to evolve and mature. This is because we possess the remarkable capacity for speech. We have advanced intellectual capabilities which allow us to effectively negotiate, to genuinely cooperate, and to clearly explain complex matters and ideas to each other in a comprehensive manner. So, if an early human didn't like something, he would take a club and hit someone over the head. When a person cannot express themselves, when they cannot accept or understand another, they act in the same way. With their aggression, they take a club and hit the other person over the head if something displeases them. And I think you all understand that the less combative a person is, the more of a diplomat they are, the more opportunities open up for them in life. They earn more, people treat them more kindly, and their opportunities become much greater. But why, even understanding this, do we still find ourselves in conflict? Why do we forget that we have a mind, we have a voice, and we can explain things and come to an agreement? In order for us to delve into this topic, we need to recall the subjectivity that I am so fond of. That is, when we come into this world, we are locked, enclosed within ourselves. We have a world of our own and nothing else. And throughout life, we come to know the world around us. We get to know other people, or at least we try to. But it doesn't always work out that way. In other words, the more my personal world becomes increasingly closed off and isolated, the more profoundly subjective its nature becomes. This heightened subjectivity, in turn, leads to a perception where the surrounding environment, the very space around me, will inevitably appear more threatening, unwelcoming, and overtly hostile. That is, I will constantly experience this sense of non-identity, this very feeling of it's not the way I want it to be. Today, I have prepared some drawings for you. This is how a person most often perceives the world. That is, I am small, and the world is big and dangerous. And it feels as if I am constantly in opposition to this world. Even just stepping outside my home, it feels as though I am entering a hostile environment. Many people describe it this way. They don't leave their homes because the world feels hostile. They often describe the world as being miserable, incredibly boring, quite unsafe, and utterly rejecting. In fact, a human person is the greatest mystery of all, one that a person can never fully comprehend or truly understand. It is so simple that it doesn't even occur to many people. In other words, when a person describes the world, they are actually describing their own inner world. Yet at the same time, they are convinced that they are talking about the external world. That is, a person becomes locked inside themselves, cut off from the outside world. They show little real interest in what is happening around them and make no effort to explore it or to truly understand it. They are completely fixated on themselves, on their own self. And in reality, this world does not exist for them at all. So initially, when we come into this world, we arrive completely focused on ourselves. We are only interested in ourselves. And even if we are interested in someone else, it is only from the perspective of what they can give to me, or from the perspective of what they think about me, or from the perspective of whether they are dangerous to me or beneficial to me. So when people are told, you are too self-centered, they respond, but I'm always thinking about others, how others will look at me, what others will think of me. In other words, they are still thinking about themselves. And when a person describes their rather primitive, subjective world centered around themselves, they don't realize that this is what they are describing. It seems to them that they are describing the entire surrounding world. And the more a person is locked inside themselves, the more sheltered and identical to themselves conditions they require, the more hostile the world will seem. Because the world will not want to obey me or conform to how I want things to be. And you see, this is the sad news on the one hand, but by knowing the truth, we gain hope for a way out. My world is boring, my world is cruel, my world is aggressive. I reject this external world, this unpleasant outside world that refuses to obey me. But at the same time, I am convinced that it is actually the outside world that is doing all this to me. You see how interestingly our mind works. This is the most fundamental projection a person can make, to attribute to the entire external world what in reality belongs only to themselves. And by drawing such a conclusion, a person locks themselves into hopelessness. Well, you can't really do anything about the world, can you? What can you do with it? It is just the way it is. And instead of changing their inner world, a person looks for certain people or certain circumstances where they will finally feel safe, although in reality, the entire battle is happening within them. So I've already put notes everywhere. Now let's talk about combativeness. In other words, I needed to give this whole preamble to now discuss combativeness. That is, a person feels as if there is no aggression within them. They feel as though it is the world that is attacking them. The world attacks them with its lack of sameness. And the person genuinely feels pain. They often say with a deep sigh, "It truly hurts. I have to endure a great deal. I suffer immensely. I am frequently rejected. People constantly make demands of me, and I am always being forced into situations." But in reality, the person is already approaching the world with an aggressive attitude, rejecting it and making demands of themselves to be a certain way, so that the world will give them everything they want. That is, I force myself to behave in a certain way in order to be liked and to get something for myself. But it seems to me that someone else is forcing me to conform. I reject this world. I don't love it. I'm not interested in it. But at the same time, I am convinced that it is the world that is not interested in me and that it rejects me. Everything internal and external becomes mixed together, and as a result, the person does not trust themselves. He doesn't understand. Am I being attacked right now, or did I behave inappropriately somehow? You see, for a person who is closed off within themselves, the external world hasn't emerged, so personal boundaries haven't formed where they can clearly say, "This is mine and this belongs to someone else." Everything is mixed up. There is no external or internal. Everything happens inside me. And you know, this is such a surprising idea, and at the same time, such an incredible, almost unbelievable form of self-deception. The more pain a person has, the more patience they have, the more combative they become. Well, the pain comes from the world not being the way I need it to be, and from this pain I can either suffer or I can attack if I wasn't given what I needed. Of course, those wrong people need to be punished. And a person quite calmly acknowledges that they are in pain, that they are enduring, that they are suffering. But if you tell them that their pain is equal to their aggressiveness, their anger, their opposition to the world, they won't agree. They are ready to work with their pain and suffering. They come as a victim. But he doesn't talk about his belligerence, his hatred toward the world, his dissatisfaction with the world, because, as you already know, he instantly loses his ideal image. And the person keeps dwelling on this pain, keeps dwelling on this endurance, keeps dwelling on their suffering, but their life does not change. They don't gain more friends, more opportunities, more offers, more money, or more fulfillment, because he is not actually working on what truly holds him back from progress. He is not working on his combativeness. Now, let's imagine I walk into a group of people. I start to monitor how people look at me, and I am already on guard because I am afraid of not being liked. I am afraid that I am not good enough. I am afraid that people will look at me the wrong way, and inside I am overwhelmed with fear and almost already bracing myself for this pain. And I am certain that I am suffering inside. Although in reality, if you were to set up a camera and film me, you would see a rather tense and unfriendly face. So on the inside, I am suffering. On the inside, I am scared. On the inside, I am like a little rabbit whose paws are trembling. But on the outside, my face looks tense, sharp, and completely different. And this is quite an interesting optical illusion. Inside, it feels like I'm experiencing one thing, but then I watch a video of myself and it seems like a completely different person. That's not what I was feeling inside. That's not at all what I wanted to say. In reality, I was just scared. Why do I look aggressive? It's strange. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is our combativeness. Combativeness arises precisely in opposition to the world. Within this pain and suffering, there is always a hidden aggressiveness that we don't want to acknowledge. And if you focus exclusively and intensely only on the immediate sensations of pain and the profound experience of suffering, you will inevitably miss the fundamental and primary cause of your deep-seated inner problems and emotional turmoil. That is, it's this inherent and often unacknowledged aggressiveness that truly lies at the root of these difficulties. It doesn't matter what we're actually feeling, anger or pain. In any case, we are in opposition to this world. In other words, we are not cooperating with this world. It's as if the world is beating us down. It is not identical to us. It doesn't want to be the way we need it to be. And my aggressiveness seems to become permissible to me, especially if there is someone weaker nearby. So when I talk to people who are aggressive toward those who are peaceful, who tell me about pain and suffering, but if they start to be honest with themselves, they admit that they would enter into conflict if they were certain they would win. That is, when a person is weaker or more defenseless, for example, our close relatives, our parents, whom we can lash out at, as they say, or children or animals. Some people seem so kind and good, but then they end up hurting their pets, never telling anyone about it, even erasing it from their own memory. But in fact, this suffering person, who is like someone without skin, can become quite aggressive in those moments when they are sure they will win, or when they have accumulated enough anger to have the strength to overcome their opponent. And, well, combativeness and pain are closely intertwined, but we don't want to notice this. So, I have written some quotes here for you. That is, until combativeness becomes the subject of close examination, a person remains trapped in the inability to change anything. As long as a person presents pain and suffering, both to themselves and to their psychologist, instead of their aggressiveness, they will not find a way out, because they are deceiving themselves, albeit unintentionally. By no means am I reproaching you for doing this intentionally, because it is difficult to acknowledge the darkness within ourselves. Pain and suffering are easier to recognize. And this moment of understanding your own non-identity, realizing that you are in opposition to the world, as if you are always in a fighting stance, helps you see how to begin cooperating, how to cultivate peace and kindness within yourself. Because a person who is suffering from pain, as you know, cannot truly be kind. That is, a person who is suffering painfully and perceives the world in this way is not aggressive only because they know they cannot win in this conflict. And kindness develops precisely from understanding how you relate to others, how you appear from the outside, how you live in this world. So we started with the idea that a person is in opposition. Let me find the paper I need. Just a second. We initially started with the profound idea that a person is often in direct opposition, that they are constantly being pushed and pressured, that numerous demands are frequently made of them, and that they are, at times, being actively attacked. It is precisely in this particular position, in direct opposition to the prevailing view, that the situation unfolds. But in fact, for opportunities to open up before a person, for them to stop merely surviving and begin living, only in a state of truly living does a person develop creativity. As long as a person is merely surviving, they cannot generate original ideas, be creative, think, and so on. So you see, in order to start this process of individuation, for a person to be able to generate original ideas, they need to get out of survival mode. In other words, they need to integrate into this world. Many people, when they try to integrate into this world, immediately perceive cooperation with the world as hostile. Are you suggesting that I cancel myself? No, I'm only suggesting to let go of hostility, not yourself. That's how it is. In the future, I'll return to this theme and create more videos where we'll look at this mismatch in greater depth and from different angles. So stay with us, and there's much more ahead. And to you, ladies and gentlemen, I suggest, as always, that you either write down in your notes or share in the comments below the video whether you have noticed a mismatch between what you feel inside and what you actually express on the outside. Perhaps you watched a video, looked at a photograph, listened to an audio recording, or simply realized yourself that what you felt inside and what you expressed outwardly were significantly different. If you enjoyed the video, as always, please give it a like. Leave a plus sign or a heart in the comments, and until we meet again,